Welcome to another episode of Smart AI Unlocked, your go-to guide for harnessing the power of AI to elevate your business. Let's dive into today's discussion.
All right, so you want to dive into this whole AI and HR thing. You're curious about how it can actually work, in a real company. And you found this YouTube video that promises some real-world examples. So we're going to pull out the most interesting parts, break them down for you, and see if we can't spark some ideas.
Well, they start off, I think, brilliantly by defining people processes. It's basically any process that starts with a person, which sounds simple at first, but then when you really think about it, it's actually really powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It made me realize how many processes in HR start with a person. It's not just the obvious things like submitting a job application or something, but it's like a manager putting in a hiring request or even someone filing a harassment complaint. All of those things kick off a whole chain of events.
And each of those chains of events
Right.
could potentially be an area where AI can come in and make things more efficient or maybe even more fair or accurate.
So the video dives right into an example. Let's say a manager needs to hire someone new. They submit a request, and instead of that request just sitting in someone's inbox, AI steps in and immediately reviews it, checks to see if it aligns with company policies, looks at the job description to see if it makes sense, and can even summarize the request for the person who needs to approve it. I mean, that's got to save a ton of time right there.
Yeah, it's a great illustration of how AI can take over some of those repetitive rule-based tasks that HR departments often get bogged down with. And what's fascinating here is that the video emphasizes that AI isn't just this. Like a magic solution that you slap onto your existing processes.
Right. They really emphasize understanding your current processes first, before you even think about AI. It makes sense though, right? If the process is already a mess, AI isn't going to magically fix it.
Exactly. You need to know where the bottlenecks are, where things are inefficient or where errors are happening so that you can target AI to actually address those specific points.
So think about it like this. What's your biggest HR headache right now? Is it that mountain of resumes you got to sift through every time there's an open position? Or maybe it's like chasing down approvals for something simple like a change of address. Could AI help streamline those things?
Now, the video also does a good job of explaining the current state of AI, pointing out that large language models are kind of the stars of the show right now. Think of them as super brains that have been trained on massive amounts of text data. And so they can understand and even generate human-like language.
No, so that's where ChatGPT comes in. They actually show a side-by-side comparison of ChatGPT and another one called Claude, both generating a job description for a digital marketing manager in seconds. It's pretty wild how quickly they can spit something out that actually sounds coherent.
And that's really what's driving a lot of the excitement around AI right now, that speed and that fluency. However, the video also points out that a lot of companies claiming to be AI-powered are actually just using something called APIs to tap into these large language models.
Okay, hold on. APIs. That sounds a little techie. Break that down for me a little bit. What are we talking about here?
Sure. So think of an API as a messenger that allows different software systems to talk to each other. So instead of building their own AI from scratch, a lot of companies are using APIs to connect their existing HR software to these powerful language models like ChatGPT.
Oh, so they're basically just borrowing the brains of these big AI systems. It's got to be easier than trying to create their own.
Right. And that's an important distinction because simply using ChatGPT on its own is very different from actually having it deeply integrated into your HR workflows. That's where the real game-changing potential lies.
I like how the video calls this making AI part of the process, not just using AI.
Exactly. Weaving it into the fabric of how you do things. So imagine an employee uploads a document and AI automatically reviews it based on your criteria, checking for errors or making sure it's formatted properly. And then that review happens instantly. And the process either moves forward automatically or it gets flagged for human attention, all without anyone having to lift a finger.
They give a cool example of this in action. An employee wants to change their work percentage. They fill out a request in the company's online portal, and the AI instantly reviews it, figures out if it's straightforward or not, and then either approves it or flags it for a human to look at.
Yeah, and that kind of automation is a great illustration of what AI can do in HR. It's not about replacing humans, it's about taking care of those routine tasks so humans can focus on the things that require judgment, creativity, and empathy.
So that's the big picture stuff. But the video also gets into some super specific examples. And this is where it gets really interesting for someone who's actually trying to figure out what AI could do for them.
Let's dive into those examples in the next part. So are you ready to get into some real-world AI in HR applications?
Absolutely. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Like, what can AI actually do for HR departments today?
Well, the video covers a lot of ground, but one of the areas where AI can really shine is in hiring.
Makes sense. I mean, that's often the biggest pain point for HR, right? Like finding the right candidates, sorting through tons of applications, making sure you're making fair and unbiased decisions. It's a lot to handle.
Exactly. And AI can actually help at every stage of that process. So, we talked about AI reviewing those hiring requests from managers, but it can go way beyond that. Like imagine AI analyzing job descriptions, comparing them to similar roles in the market, and even suggesting improvements to make them more attractive to candidates.
Oh, so it's like having an extra set of eyes.
Yeah.
Or maybe even an extra brain to ensure that those job descriptions are really hitting the mark.
Right. And then when it comes to those mountains of resumes, AI can be a real lifesaver. It can scan those applications, identify keywords, look for specific skills and experience, and even rank candidates based on how well they match the requirements.
Oh man, that's got to be a huge time saver for recruiters. They can actually focus on the most promising candidates instead of getting lost in this sea of applications.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that AI can do more than just match keywords. It can actually learn over time as it processes more applications and gets feedback from recruiters. It can actually refine its algorithms and get better at identifying the best candidates.
Wow, so it's not just automating a task. It's like using AI to improve the quality of your hiring decisions over time.
Now, another area where AI can be incredibly helpful is in those tedious, detail-oriented tasks that HR departments have to deal with, like reviewing P45 documents, for example.
Yeah, those things are full of crucial information, and a single error can cause major headaches down the line.
Exactly. AI can quickly scan those documents, flag any inconsistencies or missing information, basically act as like a superpowered proofreader for HR.
Okay, that frees up so much time for HR professionals to focus on more strategic work, like, developing talent, improving employee engagement, working on those bigger picture initiatives that actually make a difference.
Absolutely. And it's not just about saving time. It's also about reducing errors and improving accuracy.
And the video also touches on using AI for more sensitive areas, like harassment complaints. But I'm a little curious to get your take on that. It seems like that's where things could get a little tricky.
Yeah, it's definitely an area that requires careful consideration. I think it's important to emphasize that AI should never be the sole decision maker in these kinds of situations. Human empathy and judgment and understanding are absolutely essential.
I agree. You can't just hand over something as sensitive as a harassment complaint to an algorithm.
However, AI can play a valuable role in supporting that process. Like imagine an AI that can analyze the complaint, identify key themes and patterns, and even compare it to previous cases to provide context and insights for the HR manager.
So it's like having a research assistant that can quickly pull up relevant information and help the HR manager make a more informed decision.
Right, and it could also help ensure consistency in how complaints are handled, which is really crucial for fairness and transparency.
Yeah, you wouldn't want one person's complaint being handled completely differently from another person's just because different people were involved.
Yeah, exactly. Consistency is key, and AI can help with that.
Now, the video also talks about AI traceability, which sounds pretty important. What exactly does that mean?
So it basically means that you should be able to understand how the AI is reaching its conclusions. You shouldn't just have to trust that it's doing the right thing. You should be able to see what data it's using, what factors it's considering, and how it's arriving at its decisions.
So it's like having a transparent process where you can see under the hood and understand how the AI is working.
Exactly. And that's important for a couple of reasons. First, it helps build trust. If people understand how the AI is working, they're more likely to accept its recommendations. Second, it allows you to identify any potential biases or errors in the system.
Right, because even though AI can be incredibly powerful, it's still based on the data it's been trained on. And that data could contain biases or inaccuracies.
Exactly. So traceability is crucial for ensuring that the AI is making fair and unbiased decisions.
Now, the video also makes a distinction between two approaches to using AI. AI plus automation and AI plus human supervision. Can you break this down for me?
Sure. So AI plus automation is what we've been talking about so far. It's where the AI makes a decision and the process moves forward automatically without any human intervention.
So like those examples of AI reviewing P45 documents or sifting through job applications.
Right. In those cases, the AI might be able to handle the entire process on its own. But in more sensitive cases, like those harassment complaints, you'd probably want to use AI plus human supervision.
So the AI would still do the initial analysis, but a human would always be involved in making the final decision.
Exactly. That way you get the benefits of AI's speed and efficiency,
Yeah.
but you also have the human judgment and empathy to make sure that the decision is fair and ethical.
And the video suggests starting with AI plus human supervision, especially for organizations that are new to using AI. That seems like a smart approach.
Yeah, I agree. It allows you to test the waters, build trust, and refine the system before you move to full automation.
And even with full automation, you still want to have mechanisms in place for human oversight and intervention, especially in cases where the AI's decision could have a significant impact on someone's life.
Absolutely. It's about finding that right balance between AI and human involvement.
Now, the video also mentions the legal and ethical considerations of using AI in HR, and they highlight this thing called the EU's AI Act, which sounds like a pretty big deal. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, the AI Act is a landmark piece of legislation that's really setting the stage for how AI will be used in the future. And it aims to ensure that AI systems are used responsibly and ethically, especially in areas like HR, where decisions can have a real impact on people's lives.
So it's kind of like a set of guardrails to make sure AI isn't used in ways that could harm people or violate their rights.
Exactly, and it has a few key principles. One is transparency, which we already talked about. Companies need to be open about how they're using AI and what data it's using to make decisions. Another one is explainability, which means that we should be able to understand the logic behind the AI's decisions. We shouldn't just treat it as a magic black box.
Yeah, those seem like pretty reasonable requirements. I mean, if AI is going to be making decisions that affect people's lives, we need to be able to understand how it's working.
Absolutely. And the AI Act also emphasizes human oversight, which we talked about earlier. And it's recognizing that we can't just delegate sensitive decisions to algorithms without making sure that human judgment and empathy are still in the loop.
So it's all about finding that right balance between the power of AI and the importance of human values.
Right. And the AI Act also prohibits certain practices, like using AI for emotion recognition or biometric categorization in the workplace.
So that's good to know. It seems like those kinds of technologies could be very easily misused.
Exactly. So the AI Act is really trying to strike a balance between fostering innovation and protecting people's rights.
Well, it sounds like a complex issue, but it's really important to be having these conversations as AI becomes more prevalent in our lives.
I agree. It's not about being afraid of AI. It's about understanding its potential.
Yeah.
And making sure it's used in ways that benefit everyone.
Well said. So as we wrap up this section on the practical and ethical considerations of using AI in HR, what's the key takeaway you want to leave our listener with?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that AI isn't this scary job-stealing force that people make it out to be. It's more like a powerful tool that can help us do things better, faster, and more fairly.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's got the potential to really transform HR. But it's up to us to use it responsibly and ethically right. It's like that quote from Peter Drucker that the video ends with, "Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things." I think it's a good reminder that we can't just focus on automating everything. We need to make sure we're automating the right things and that we're using AI to achieve goals that are actually aligned with our values.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just be efficient. You got to be effective, too. And that means using AI in a way that benefits everyone, not just the company's bottom line.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into AI and HR, I want to leave you with a few questions to think about. What are the biggest challenges you're facing in your HR department right now? Could AI help you address those challenges? And if so, how can you implement AI in a way that's both efficient and ethical?
Those are really great questions to consider. And I think it's also important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. The best approach to AI and HR is going to vary, depending on the specific needs and values of each organization.
For sure. So do your research, explore the possibilities, and think critically about how AI can help you create a better workplace for everyone.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to experiment. This field is constantly evolving, so there's always something new to learn and try.
That's great advice. So listener, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI and HR. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
And we encourage you to keep exploring the possibilities of this exciting new technology.
Until next time, keep diving deep.